Hello and welcome to Canvas, the Niger Delta Roundtable, where I discuss the future of this region blessed with hydrocarbon resources. Every week, we give some time to reflect on topics relevant to the development of the Niger Delta and her people. This episode is no different. I'm here once again. We're focusing on how to take this region to a more promising future. This podcast is sponsored by the operator of the NNPC, Renaissance Total Energies Ajib Joint Venture, Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited, headquartered in Port Harcourt. Thanks for joining. I'm Adedayo Ilushakin. Topic for this episode, the land could be yours. In today's episode, we're talking about land, legacy, and long-term value. We're talking about real estate investment. In a region rich with potential, but often overlooked in national development narratives, real estate offers more than just buildings. It offers stability, opportunity, and transformation. From waterfront development to affordable housing, gated communities to commercial hubs, the Niger Delta is quietly becoming a frontier to smart investment. But what does it take to invest wisely here? What are the risks, the rewards, and the realities? Whether you are a first-time investor, a seasoned developer, or simply curious about how property shapes prosperity, this conversation is for you. Again, a topic on Canvas this week is the land could be yours. And my guest is Nze Anosike. Nze Anosike is a visionary real estate developer and business leader with over 15 years experience driving high-value property development projects and delivering innovative housing solutions in Nigeria. Nze is founder and lead partner of Cribs Apartments and Cribs Construction Nigeria Limited. Nze, or as I like to call you, Cribs, welcome to Canvas.
Hello, Dayo. Good to be here. And you forgot to add my title. I'm not a chief.
Oh, congratulations.
You didn't notice I was wearing a cap in your studio.
But not a red one.
Oh, well.
Does it matter?
It must not necessarily be a red one. It's a cap.
Oh, okay. and no.
No, I just have one only.
Oh, does this count? I thought this should be red as well.
It's like a Gen Z chief. I'm a Gen Z chief. So I'm a Gen Z chief.
But are you Gen Z? Actually?
I'm not a Gen Z, but I'm living in the Gen Z generation, so I want to appear that way.
Cool.
But I think my cap is a sign to know. You say I have one feather here, so I should show that I'm a chief. Yeah.
All right, great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Again.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've had several discussions over the years. I've known you for a number of years now. We've had discussions over the years when I used to be on radio, personal conversations. So some of what I'm asking you now, we've talked about before.
Yeah.
But for the benefit of a different audience who haven't had the privilege I've had to have those private conversations with you, you've had you've had an interesting, inspiring story.
Okay.
If I say so myself, and I'm sure that. Some other person, at least one person, would learn quite a bit from your story.
Okay.
So let's start from the very beginning. What inspired you to go into the real estate business?
First of all, I studied real estate, and again, it was not really something I set out to go into from the beginning. Living in this part of the Niger Delta, we all have this mentality of working in oil and gas. Basically, my generation, we grew up when there used to be a lot of rigs out there. So everybody wants to graduate, look for one rig job where you go do 30 days in, 30 days out, come out and buy some Honda Accord and Honda Bullets and all that. But again, should I say destiny took its course or nature took its course? Somehow we switched. Like I said, I studied real estate. I have a degree in estate management from Abia State University. And I've also grew up as a child. My dad works in construction. And it's something I've always come to enjoy as a child. Because I remember growing up as a child, living along Ikwere Road. I was there when they were constructing Ikwere Road. I would always come out to see the concrete mixer, pouring mortars, people digging excavators, putting bricks here and there. And at the end of the day, it's standing. So I've come to enjoy that. But again, as I grew up, I saw a very big lacuna in the housing sector. And I felt it was an area much people were not playing in. Though it's capital intensive, but we tried to improvise a way to start little. And from there, we can build up. So that's how I got myself here. And asked me if I would want to do any other thing again. No. In fact, my construction company is suffering because I'm basically focusing more on real estate than I pay attention to that. Other aspects of my life, they're lying low. I'm concentrating on building real estate, providing accommodation for people, providing conducive environment for families and Nigerians to live. And so far, I think I'm enjoying the race.
What makes land and property such powerful economic tools?
Oh, it's from the creation. The first thing God created is let there be light. As a man, you need to survive on a surface, and that surface simply is real estate. Everybody seems to live on land, so you cannot live on the air. As long as you continue to live on land, it must be in high demand. Countries go to war because of land. Israel is fighting today Palestinians because of Gaza, who owns Israel, and all that. So land is powerful tune, and it's something that from the days of our ancestors till now, people have continued to kill for it, and it will continue like that. So I think everybody's exists on it, so the demand is high.
Are there peculiarities from place to place? Niger Delta, for example, is there a uniqueness to land or its acquisition, basically?
Well, I think to an extent, yes. I'll answer this from two perspectives because I've been to countries where, in the Niger Delta, for instance, you have lands that have mineral resources on it. You cannot categorize it as a land that doesn't have mineral resources. But I had that impression, but I've been able to travel a little around the world. And I've seen countries that have no natural resources, yet they've been able to build their land to add value to it. It is more expensive to buy a house in Malta than it is to buy in the Niger Delta that has oil. Why am I saying so? Malta has completely no mineral resources. They just have the Mediterranean Sea that crosses across them. But if you want to buy a small 2-bedroom flat apartment there, you're talking about close to 700 million euros, 700,000 euros for a small 2-bedroom or 400,000 euros. But with that, I can buy a whole land in one community in the Niger Delta. So in terms of peculiarity, yes, to an extent, but I've not come to believe in that because I believe value can be added to land even when there's no value. So the peculiarity depends on who is handling the land at that particular time. That's how I look at it. My perspective used to be before there could be because there's oil in this land, the value needs to be high, there's gold in this land, but I've seen communities that had nothing. They turned it into something.
What challenges and opportunities exist in the real estate industry or business in the Niger Delta?
Huge.
Let's start with the challenges.
The challenges, yes. Land acquisition. In fact, the whole Nigeria, land acquisition is a major problem. We have one, first of all, the government bottleneck called the Land Use Act, restricting you from having a proper documentation on land, except the governor gives you a concept. That is a hidden factor because you cannot access finance from any financial institution without having a proper document. Even when it's your father that's transferred that land to you. In fact, even where they buried your dad, you don't have a right over it, except the government gives you a concept over that land. That is one. Secondly, when you look at the issue of housing, it's a major problem over here. We're having a serious housing crisis in the Niger Delta. And that is also affecting the way we live and the way we behave. So in terms of, what was that again? You asked the opportunities or what?
Opportunities, yes.
The opportunities we have over here.
Yeah.
We have opportunity of people are not being able to access land. So if we're able to create housing, we can create employment, we can create jobs, we can create a conducive, decent environment for the people.
Oh, you talked about the governor's consent.
Yeah.
How about those who are traditional owners of land? I mean, like you said, land has always existed. And there are people who have always lived on this land. There are people who 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, lived in a place, occupied a piece of land, and maybe from grandfather to father, even to son today. Are you saying that even there, even in those instances...
You don't have control over it. That's why I said there's a bottleneck called the Land Use Act. Until we're able to get that off our system, we will not make headway. Like I say, your ancestral grant, it's not your own legally. You cannot use it as an instrument to access finance. you are required to provide certificate of occupant to be able to even access 10,000 naira from the bank, which is not supposed to be so. 80% of 92% of lands in Nigeria, particularly in states across the Niger Delta, are not documented. What is the documented? The documentation means that government has not given you a certificate of occupant on that land. So you cannot do nothing on that land. You can't use your land as a collateral to access agricultural loan. You can't even attract a foreign investments. Because if, for instance, if I'm bringing a company from China to come and develop here, they need a guarantee from my bank to identify me and be sure that what I'm asking this facility for, it's going to be used for that purpose. The first thing my bank will ask me is to provide a documentation on the piece of land we're supposed to develop. And what are the part of the documentation they're asking? They're asking you for certificate of occupant. Who gives you that right? The government that gives you that right. So there are still bottlenecks here and there that needs to be done. So you don't have absolute control over even your father's grave in your village.
So can such land that's not been documented, or you don't have a CFO from the governor, can you sell such a land? Or even as a potential investor or buyer, is it advisable to buy such land?
You can't sell. You can't sell.
You can't.
You can sell.
You can, okay.
But you cannot convert it. For instance, I'm a developer, for instance. I'm buying, say, for instance, 20 hectares of land in Transamadi. Of course, I don't have that kind of war chest in my pocket. I'll need to bring in the financial institution to acquire that place for us to be able to develop those properties. What are the questions they're asking me? What kind of title does it have? The moment the issue of title comes in, knows there's supposed to be a proper documentation. And what are you looking at? You're looking at certificate of occupants. Now, if I'm buying one plot of land from somewhere in Okuru or somewhere in Nembe that I just want to put up my 3-bedroom bungalow, it's not a problem. But when I'm going for a turnkey project that requires a lot of billions of naira for me to go into action, maybe to put up an accommodation that can accommodate maybe 500 or 600 persons, I am required to provide the proper documentation. And what are those documentation? The government will ask me for certificate of occupants. So that's where the bottleneck is. It is practically not based on those doing half plots, one plot of land that wants to sell their one piece of land, live their life quietly and all that. It has to do with those that are putting up huge accommodation.
Estates, for example.
Good. For instance, I've always shouted on this and I've always spoken about it. River State, for instance, we're having a serious housing crisis. I don't know whether any of you have taken note of that. There are less accommodations currently in Port Harcourt. Why? Because the population of the capital is increasing. Nobody's taking that into consideration. A 2-bedroom flat is as high as 3 million naira now in places that used to be like 600,000. Why? People are not putting out more houses in the markets. Initially, it used to be the quarryman that would manage to put up some little self-contained there and there, 1-bedroom flat, 2-bedroom flats. Other individuals came in and started looking at this as a source of investment. But people's appetite is changing. They are moving to something more lucrative. There's a money market. There's all sorts of things that is going on, cryptocurrencies and all that. People don't have the strength to start running after tenants and all that. So a lot of people are shying away from developing. What happened is causing crisis, and the state is expanding. People are coming in. Nobody's providing accommodation for them. So the government is not even looking at it as a problem. But I'm sure in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see this crisis because it's going to escalate to a point where the government might not be able to control it. What are those bottlenecks? Those bottlenecks still boils down to the same documentation we are talking about. I have a parcel of land. The bank is willing to give me funds for it, but I don't have a proper documentation according to the bank. Why? I need to provide CFO for them to even loan me, for me to be able to go back and develop that land and provide accommodation for the people. So you see the problem. If government does not step in and look at some of these things as problem, then we're heading for a crisis. There's going to be a housing crisis in River State.
So what does a developer like yours do in such an instance where there's a large piece of property, you want to acquire it, you want to develop it, build it next to it or something, provide housing, and there's no proper documentation? What do you do then?
I opt out. I buy the one I can. That's the truth. I would want to throw out 50, 100 units out there in the market if I have the support of the financial institution. And what do they require? They require me to have a proper land documentation. But the situation whereby the authorities are not providing me with that, but I can't keep myself.
So why don't you just go to the governor's office or the office or the appropriate office and get the documentation?
The truth is, the authorities, the government knows this. If you have a system that works, I was in London in July. My company is registered in London. there is a loan set aside for real estate developers at a very, very minimum interest rate, because they know housing is a social responsibility, not just for developers, but also government, part of government's, what government is supposed to, it's just like access to education. It's also the same thing with decent accommodation. If you go to London, ask people, they know what they call council houses. Local government build houses. If you cannot afford your rent, they will take you up and put you there for a period of time. Nobody talks about that. So the government understands that we need to provide accommodation for our people. So when they get private individuals that are doing that, they try as much as they can to encourage you. Dayo, do you know, if I have $1 million today and I want to go into real estate in Canada or somewhere in America, I could be granted the citizenship to bring in that $1 million and invest in real estate. You bring back that same money, which is maybe probably 1.5 billion, to, say for instance, for a Port Harcourt market or a Lagos market. Nobody answers you. You buy the land and you try to get documentation, it becomes a problem. So until government starts to see this as part of their problem and also part of their responsibility to fix, I don't think we can make headways. In the whole of Nigeria, the only place you can have a proper documentation, even they still have their lapses here and there, is in Abuja. Apart from that, no states. Look at what is happening currently in Lagos. They're complaining that people are building on wetlands. They're trying to demolish buildings. And you ask yourself, who granted them the approval to build there? Some government official did that. Is it not? If you have a proper master plan that this is supposed to be a wetland, you're not supposed to be there, people wouldn't have erected structure on there. So you don't have a proper land documentation. We've had the issues of land grabbing here and there in Port Harcourt, people killing themselves inside the bush, shooting and all that. No proper documentation. So government need to step up and understand that part of their responsibility is also to provide shelter for the people.
So from what you've said right now, so is the real estate business a wrong place to go into right now, to put money into?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. In fact, I tell people it's the safest investment. If your analysis are right, if you buy the right property and do the right thing, it's one of the safest and the most guaranteed investment you can have on the surface of the earth. Real estate did number 4 in Q2 when it comes to GDP growth. In fact, real estate did better than agriculture this quarter, and second quarter that just ended, number 4 in terms of the GDP calculations and all that. It is a huge market that provides, first of all, the employment. I told you last time we met, if you can remember, I said, I have some project that are 1,500 persons have passed inside that project. I'm doing bigger than you know me then. I've seen maybe 3,000 or 4,000 persons pass through my projects, providing them with a minimum of 4,000 naira every day. If you calculate that in a month, it's more than the minimum wage. You have carpenters that work there. My carpenter did not go to school. He cannot make a clear sentence in English. But I've given him job worth over 100 and something million. He drives a car, the wife drives a car, the children are all graduates. My bricklayers, I have medicine guy that comes from somewhere in the southwest that does my plastering. I pay him as high as 15, 20 million. He brings boys, they sleep in the place and they do all their jobs and leave. It is only the real estate sector that has that capacity to absorb that numbers of unemployed Nigerians. So the government does not even understand what they're doing. The day they wake the real estate market up, because we have a deficit of about 22 million. This was calculated sometime in 1980 something. We've not checked the current one. If we check now, maybe we'll be somewhere around 50 million. Housing deficits. When I mean decent accommodation. We are not talking about in America or the West. You go, people who have what they call holiday houses. Here, we're even talking about those that want to survive first before they start talking of holiday houses. So we have a deficit that's behind, that has not been tapped. Imagine we just, okay, let's pick 5 million and do 5 million in the next 3 years. See the numbers of jobs we'll be able to create and see the numbers of accommodation we'll be able to provide. So the government needs to wake up and take this as a serious issue they need to tackle.
What are some of the misconceptions or errors or mistakes that people make when it comes to investing in property?
Well, documentation is key. Like I said, the issue of too many undocumented land leads to people losing their money. You buy land today, the next day you come, somebody said, I'm the owner of this land, because there's no proper places to go to and make search and verify who truly owns this property. If we have a proper documentation in terms of land, some of these issues will be solved. And people will be able to say, okay, I've got a piece of land I've bought in the last 20 years. Nobody comes into it. Nobody tampers with it. This is my property. I have the original documents. And again, I tell somebody the other day, I was telling someone the other day, I said, look, even the so-called C of O, the government is supposed to, it's supposed to be for revenue generation. Because you have what we call grant rents. We have what we call grant rents that those having C of O are supposed to pay yearly. So the government is even supposed to be giving as much as they can to be able to generate grant rents from there. If you check how much Lagos State generates alone from grant rent, you'll be shocked. Go and check how much a state like Rivers and Bayelsa generates. In fact, Lagos State is using C of O now to lure investors. Give you C of O in 90 days. Give you C of O in 60 days. Yes, the previous administration that left the state and the current governor, I think they are doing their bits from, or I can speak of the past administrations of Wike, because I had a couple of ones sorted out with him without knowing anybody and without bribing anybody. They got that sorted out. I've not tried applying during FOBARA. Maybe I just have some little bit of consent to do here and there. But when Wike was here, I know that if you apply for C of O within a shortest period of time without even knowing anybody, you get that done. We need to encourage more of that. The governors need to start signing that. If they can also drive for the grant rent, they can hand it over to a consultant that will help them. Take, for instance, Rivers State say we're going to generate 10 billion or 15 billion from grant rents. And you get a consultant and say, okay, drive this. Give us 8 billion and keep the rest. That becomes the guy's work every day, just like you do. Every day you come, you're driving that revenue. Because if the government doesn't have anything to do, they can plunge it into education or plunge it into the housing sector back. By the time you do that in 5 years, you're talking about close to 50 billion you've invested in housing. How did you get that money? You got it through grant rents. So that's what a serious government is supposed to do. So you're supposed to give out more of C of O so that you'll be able to raise and generate revenue from it.
Who can invest in real estate? I mean, do you have to be a top shot, maybe a chief with a cap and a feather? Or can young middle-income earners?
Everybody can. And I encourage people to do it as early as. Dio, if I knew some of the things I knew today, maybe I would have been one of the wealthiest, richest young Nigerian. I'll give you, for instance, I graduated 2007. As of that 2007, Peter Odele was selling for as low as 1.7 million. A plot of land. Currently, a plot of land in Peter Odele goes within 95 in Somitel, 80, 90 within those neighborhoods. In fact, I was speaking to somebody yesterday, was calling 100 million. For 1.7 million to 100 and something million. There's a place they call Eneka Link Road. I remember I escorted the clients there to buy place inside where you have the share cooperative estates. We bought for 4.5 million. This was in 2013. As of today, it's selling for 105. I went to NAF Harmony Estates. A duplex was selling for 35 million as of 2013. Today it's selling for 550 million. And you know the crazy part, bro? I've got 1.7 that time. So imagine I just managed to buy 2 plots and keep. Maybe I would have been in billions by now. So it is safe. Just make sure you're buying the right property. So everybody, there's a market for everybody. There's a market for big men like you.
Thank you.
There are markets for also those that are coming from that they can afford the 500, 600. Just find what fits you and cut your niche there and buy it off.
Okay, so if certain property was worth about 1 million or so, or 4 million years ago, and now it's worth 500 million. How are middle-income earners able to invest in that now?
Well, like I said, there's a market for everybody. So you must look for what fits your pocket. Don't forget, the property did not start at 500. It started low. So when you come in, could be your good morning. And the time the other person is coming could also be his good night. I don't know whether you get what I mean. You can meet me in the morning, I'm selling for 35. By the time I'm saying good night, it's already 500 million. So there is a market for everybody. I give you an instance. When I came in there, it was selling for 35 million as of 2014 to 15. A complete duplex was selling for 36 million. Now it is selling for over 600 million. Issues of demand and supply also has a role to play in it. Once demand is high and there's less supply in the market, it means that prices will definitely appreciate. And people are looking for decent accommodations. Look Port Harcourt round, there are few developers putting out things there in the market. You can maybe with a snap of your fingers, you can't how many developers are putting things out there. Because we also have the issue of land. Those are some of the issues we'll be raising. Maybe anytime we'll have discussions with the governor, we'll be able to put some of these things out there. We need to encourage so that they be able to provide decent accommodation.
It is Canvas, the Niger Delta Roundtable, brought to you by Renaissance. Nze Cribs is my guest. The land could be yours is the topic. We'll go for a break. We'll return in a moment. Conversation continues. Please stay with us.
In the heart of our journey, where the sun touches the earth and the wind whispers through the trees, a new chapter unfolds. A chapter where energy illuminates more than just bulbs. It lights up minds. A chapter of unity, a coming together with a common goal to energize futures and illuminating lives. In classrooms, young dreams evolve, inspired by the promise of a brighter tomorrow fueled by available energy. Small businesses flourish, becoming seeds of prosperity. Energy that empowers and is catalyst for growth and change. The future is energy. So, let's light up the path to a sustainable future together. Energy for you, me, and the world at large. Energy for people and planet. We are Renaissance.
Welcome back to the Canvas Niger Delta Roundtable, brought to you by Renaissance. I'm Dai. My guest is Cribs. Cribs, great to have you once again.
Good to have me back, Dayo.
Or Chief Cribs.
Chief Cribs. I like that. Chief Cribs.
Chief Cribs.
Oh, Chief Cribs, okay.
The land could be yours, is what we're discussing. What should people look out for? Logically, financially, practically, when making a real estate investment? I will always advise, for you to trade in stock markets, you need an expert, a stockbroker to guide you. It's only in this part of the world where you see people try to speak like experts, even when they are not. I've tried to raise a couple of that. Some people feel I'm being criticizing or not. I say, look, for instance, I studied real estate for 5 years. I have a BSc in estate management. I've attended a lot of workshops. You can compare me to somebody that sold land for 3 years and come start discussing real estate with me. We are not on the same level. So I always tell people, once you want to get into that aspect, always speak to an expert. They will be able to guide you properly. But you charge a commission or a fee?
No. That's not, the commission is the services you're paying. Overseas, once you have an appointment, you pay for consultancy. If you want a stockbroker, that's something. You're seeing a doctor for free? You buy card. You pay small and buy card. But it saves you stress. It saves you a whole lot of stress. Because you just carry your problem and put on the guy and say, okay, do this. So you must be able to speak to a consultant. Somebody it's a market. It's a real estate market. That's somebody that must do the analysis for you. There are properties you buy, in the next 10 years, they don't make more than 20% appreciation. And there are areas where you would have plunged that money and you would have made a lot of returns. And because of developing rapidly, like we're doing currently, I found out that there's even a market out there that sometimes is even guaranteed 100%. Shocking.
In 100 years?
Yeah, 100% in less than a year. I won't disclose it on air. If you want, come to Cribs' office.
Well, you tell me?
No, I'll tell you. I won't disclose it. There's a market. So you can come into that aspect, but you need to look for a brand that you can trust. So once you trust that brand, you can be able to trade in the real estate market like every other person. And you make your quick money and you leave. Last time I spoke to you about, I think we spoke about, what was it we were speaking in your studio when you were still on radio? And I was telling you there are three kinds of investors. We have the long-term, the short-term, and the mid-term investor. A consultant will be able to know your appetites and know where you're coming from. Are you investing for a long time? Are you investing for a short time? Are you investing for a mid-term? If I have a conversation with you for a long time, I should be able to know where your appetite is driven towards. And I'll be able to ask you, how long do you want to keep this? That will guide me to know the kind of property I want to put you into. Right? It will also enable me to know where I'm taking you to and also know whether the money you're trying to invest is even worth that. You can't come and give me 500,000 and tell me you want it double in 2 years. You understand? So you must be able to understand the appetites of the clients in question. You can't do this if you don't understand how the market works. So a lot of people feel they can sit in their houses and predict this. They've done a couple of real estate stuff. It works for them. And they feel, oh, if I buy this one, if they do this, they do that and all this will work and all that. Fantastic. It's an experience. But there's somebody I understand that this might not move as much as you expect. I gave you an instance. I don't want to disclose that it was part of the secret I was keeping, but it was making me to talk. So let me leave that. Whoever that wants that should consult me.
It's real estate investment. Is it sustainable? And what I mean, and by that, what I mean is this. Can you live off that if you're not a big time player like yourself, if you're not developing estates and all of that? Can you live off real estate investment?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, I'm designing a package that will take care of your pension when you leave work and solely depend on real estate. It is not rent. A lot of people don't understand that when you say rent, it is not a profit from your property. It is not, because if you take, for instance, you spend 100 million to build 4 flats and you're taking less than 8 million naira per annum, you plunge back 20% of that to take care of the house. Leakage, plumbing, all those stuffs, you're left with 6 million. You've plunged in 100 million on that, right? Divide 6 million by 12. You can't survive on that if you're working in one of those, this is one of some of these big multinationals you've mentioned. You can't. You can't have the best of life with that. But if I tell you there are things you can do, real estate, with that same money, you make a huge return and still have your capital and go on with it while you take the profits, live your life, and you keep the rest. It works like that till the day you're tired, you pull it out. We're designing that. It's not for everybody. I'm not going to say this on air because, again, like I said, I have competitors. So everybody wants to copy your ideas and all that. But you can't live off real estate comfortably. Comfortably.
Planning,
Okay.
policy, government. What role does, you've inferred this earlier on, but I'd like for you to be, to expand on that a bit. What role does that play in ensuring that we have a vibrant real estate industry?
Government has a lot to play, particularly in these states. I don't know what the land market is like in Bayelsa, but I can speak a little about Akwa Ibom and I think Akwa Ibom and to an extent Cross River within the Niger Delta. Government has a lot to play. For instance, there was something they did in Enugu some time ago. I think that was like 4 years ago. I was trying to do a couple of stuff there. The government has this policy. If you design a layout, you bring it to the government, they will practically come, take the measurement of the roads, make sure that you give spacing for drainage, street lights, or what have you, before they give you approval. So your consultant can design a layout. The government consultant comes in and say, we don't want this. You must do this. At the end of the day, they hand you over the plots back. Say, okay, you can go and sell. Now, once you acquire that property, you also have what they call infrastructure fee to pay to the government. So the government can charge each plot 2 million naira to provide infrastructure. Take, for instance, if you acquire 100 plus, and you're charging them to 200 to 2 million naira. That's about 200 and something million. Maybe within that perimeter, it's not up to a kilometer. The government takes that money and provide access road within the estate. So the Ministry of Works have a small department that is into construction. So they award that contract to them. They provide infrastructure within that estate. If you go to the likes of independent layouts, the new extensions, that was how Enugu State government was able to build that. I want to see that happen in Rivers State. Because these days, internal roads, we all depend on the NDDC to do that for us. But government can come up with such strategy. There are so many real estate firms shouting, buy 1 plot of land here, buy 2 plot of land. Fine. You want to sell, community want to sell, good. Developer, you plan the layouts, bring to us, we come and approve it. On each property you buy, you pay for infrastructure. Government provide that infrastructure. So doing, so government will be able to create job for the people and also provide infrastructure without necessarily drawing much from them. So government has a major role to play. And again, there are areas government needs to come in and stop people from speculating. I'm a real estate developer. I encourage speculation, sorry to say, because it's a quick money for those of us that are into real estate. But again, there are areas you want to discourage speculation because you want people to provide accommodation for your citizens. So you cannot come and buy 10 plots of land in GRA and tie it, fence it, and hold it for the next 20 years. And people are looking for half plots to build. Currently, you see what is happening in the FCT, where the minister is saying that if you've not built, we're going to revoke your C of O. Why are they doing that? Because there's a policy that if you buy land, within a 2 years period, you should be able to develop. So there are some areas government need to say, okay, if you're buying property in this area, in the next 2 years, you should be able to develop it. If you don't develop it, we'll take it back. By so doing, you discourage speculations. For those that want to speculate, either they buy it, sell it as fast as. You also use it to control price. Because if I know it's getting close to 2 years, I've not been able to get who will buy this, I'll look for maybe somebody that can afford me and say, okay, Oga, I'll add 1 million naira on top of it. Let me just buy it and build immediately. You'll be able to sell it. But a situation whereby you buy and keep for a very long time because you want to make more. You're waiting for your neighbor to come and build, waiting for this neighbor, and this neighbor is also waiting for you to come and build. Everybody's waiting for everybody to come and build. Nobody wants to build at the end of the day. So the place will just lie fallow. Nothing is happening. And people are all over the place looking for houses. So government needs to start coming up with policies like that. If you do that, you encourage people. Real estate is a frontier. It's something that the government must take at its front. Like, look, we need to provide a decent accommodation for our people. When I mean a decent accommodation, I'm not talking about skyscrapers. I'm talking about people having decent place to put their head at the end of work, at the end of the day. Because if you don't have a roof over your head, you can't think like somebody that's thinking right. So you must live in a decent accommodation to wake up.
A while ago, you talked about, you used the analogy of the stock market.
Yeah.
If you want to invest in the stock market, you talk to a stockbroker.
Yeah.
And in so saying, you mentioned that if you want to invest in real estate, speak to an expert or someone in the industry, someone like yourself. But in real estate, for example, there have been, over the last few years, there have been some huge scandals of persons who trusted so-called experts in the industry and invested hard-earned resources and money in the real estate business, and they got burnt eventually. Some people lost all that they had. How does one consult experts and not get burnt?
Like I said, look at people's track record. When you look at people's track record, you should be able to define who they are. I tell people all the time, everybody can sell land. You see your camera guys here? They can decide to go to Ipo. Or what's that place again? A chair bar or something they call it. And get 200 plots of land, isolate it into one plot, print flyers and start selling it. People will subscribe. That does not qualify you as a developer. That in any way does not qualify you. A developer is somebody that has handled a couple of projects. He understands inflation. He understands that I might wake up tomorrow morning, road has added. I'm building somewhere. I said that project, cement was for 6.8. Currently, cement is selling for 10,200. It has moved over 48% or so in terms of the pricing. If I have marketed that property to a particular amount to a subscriber, am I able to deliver that project at the end of the day? Those are the challenges you face as a developer. If you go ahead and deliver the project, it means you know what you're doing. So you must look for who has a track record in terms of project delivery, those with experience. By the time you do that, you'll be able to. In every profession, there are quack. You heard the story of a man that has been operating people for the last 21 years. He's not a medical doctor. And out of the 21 years, he has only recorded one death. But the day the thing came on him, they found out that he was a fake. There are so many people today parading themselves as lawyers for years. Some of them even appear in court as lawyers. It's only when the system catch up with them we know that they're not lawyers. So you should be able to look at people's track record, how they started, where they are today, and what they're building. By so doing, you'll be able to filter out those that are experts and those that really know what they're doing. So I tell people, go and look at, if I want to discuss with you as a developer, did I ask you, where is your project? I want to see it. Is it like a result? Oh, you have this. You have this. I've seen this. You've built this. People are living in it. I'll go there and ask people a question. Yes, there must be challenges. People are having, this was not perfect. This was not perfect. But people are seeing your projects. It's glaring. So at the end of the day, you'll be able to filter those that are real developers.
The discouragement for some persons investing in real estate, and this is not peculiar to real estate or the Niger Delta. I think it's a Nigerian thing. Land grabbing and community people.
Yeah.
Maybe that's more a River State or Niger Delta thing, you buy a piece of land or property, and then it's supposed to be yours.
Yes.
And then you find people that sold the land to you or claim to be affiliated with the person who sold the land to you, acting like they still have a hold on the property or on you, and constituting a menace, even to when you try to develop the property, they come there, they disrupt the process. It's a problem. How big of a challenge or how big of a problem is that? And then how does it affect investment, and what should government be doing about that?
It's a mess. It's really a mess. In fact, it's becoming too alarming. Particularly in states like Rivers. I try to save myself the stress of not buying any property that is not documented. Because again, you can imagine, even with my little visibility out there, I still have problems of that. In fact, I've bought a property, I had to pay the two sides. I've bought properties that two brothers could not sit down and share the money. One say you ate more than me, this one say you ate more than me. They went and brought land grabbers. And they always have one judge that will give one judgment, one injunction. They'll use it as an excuse. So part of the problem, part of why this is a problem, it's this issue we spoke about from the beginning when we started this conversation, issue of documentation. A situation where you don't have a proper documentation, you fall victims of this. It has a very simple problem, a solution to this, sorry. What is the solution? Every layout must be registered with the government for proper documentation. Is it a communal land? Is it a family land? It must be attached by this king, everybody, to register that plan. Once a developer comes and says, I'm interested in this, there is a document inside the file that said, this property belongs to so developer based on the agreement with families and all that. And he gets what we call a certificate of deposits, COD, from the Office of the Surveyor General. That if you go back to acquire that property, you know that you cannot get COD from the Surveyor General's office. So that guides you to know that this place you're putting your head, there's no road. See, the issue of land grabbing, this is how it works. A family of 20, 18 decides to sell. 2 say, I no agree. Now, the 2 in question might even be with them, making them 20 when this conversation started. The issue of sharing formula came and they opted out. Now those two will now connive, go and bring land grabbers. That will not come, destroy your fence, make all the troubles, go to court, they start from magistrate court, start moving about. That's how the whole thing gets messy. In fact, I heard a gist that is even within them. They will say, you go and 20 of us will go. When we collect the money from this developer, you take part of it, go and start making problem with us. You see how messy this is. So maybe 4 or 5 will leave to go and start problem. And you, a brand, you're trying to protect your brand. You start calling them, please now, please. It's whole messy. These are some of the things some of us look at and say, no, I can't continue with this. Because this thing is becoming a norm. They are making millions and billions out of it. But if you have a system that works, once you're able to register every land, a land that has a dispute on it, once you go to the court or you go to that file of that layout, you will see there's a court case on that land. Nobody goes in. So if the land remains fallow for 20 years, they will be the ones to advise themselves. To say, let's pull out these kids from the court, call ourselves and sort it out. Is it not? But a situation where you cannot even find who is in court, who is not in court. This thing will continue. The developer comes innocently to buy. And when you were talking about people losing money, this is the same way people have lost billions. I've got a situation where I have to refund money back to people because I had an image to protect. I bought a property for more than 5 years. One day I wake up, people were bringing down my fence. I was out of the country. Somebody was calling, hey, they are bringing down. Who are the people? 2 brothers fighting each other. And this one went and they cleared the fence. I spent millions in building. I spent millions again trying to sort that matter out. When you think you've sorted it out, one will creep with his head from somewhere just to extort from you. Tell me how long. I've got guys building in Lagos and Abuja. Once you tell them Port Harcourt, I'm not coming. Because we don't have an issue of proper land documentation. So the government needs to look at that, particularly in the Niger Delta. We need to start documenting land so that land can be an instrument that we can use. It's not about real estate, about selling. It's also about making sure that you can use that one piece of plot of land to access the little facility you can.
I'm glad you mentioned this because investment in real estate is not always about business.
Yes.
Sometimes it's home ownership.
Yes.
So let's talk about that as we're wrapping up the conversation now. Is it feasible now? What is the easiest pathway for a young person? Is it even possible in the first place to own a home now without being a cribs? and what is the easiest pathway to home ownership now?
Look, with what I've seen, I will encourage any person that's interested in owning a home. Just look for a developer that has a track record. Put your head under him and get a house. Because sometimes you can't even face the heat.
I was asking you earlier before we started recording how much. You called some very scary figures.
No, but
how can a young person put that kind of money?
Let me shock you. See, I'm gonna do a letter to the governor. I was speaking to one of the top mortgage banks in the country, and they told me there's a federal government mortgage scheme that the federal government has released over 450 billion for mortgage scheme. There's this MOFA thing that's also going on. The advert is all over the place. A lot of people from the Niger Delta, in fact, from River State, River State has not accepted up to 2 billion naira from that scheme. And when we got talking, we found out that part of the problem was documentation. Documentation, and people are not developing. Because the scheme says you must buy a house. So if I put out a product out there, what you just said now wouldn't have been a problem because you have 30 years to pay back. Dio, do you need to break your head then to pay back in 30 years or be corrupt? The federal government has already provided that for you. You have a job that can take care of the mortgage. But because we don't have this information, and if we do have the information, who are developing? Access to land is a problem. So the government needs to say, okay, A, B, C, D is developer. You go and take this land, build. The few ones they've given, I say this on radio. A lot of them are speculators. They take that land from government, they do access, do perimeter fence, and start selling it as plots. Now you ask yourself, was this the purpose government gave this land? For it to be sold as plots? And when you sell a plot for 30 million, 50 million, big developers come to buy it, speculators come in. And you don't consider the common man out there. So if I buy land for 35 million and put a duplex on it, that costs me around 100 million, how much do you expect me to sell it? So government must get those that are interested in developing. See, with 30 million, you can get a bungalow of 4 bedrooms. Some people are not so ambitious. They don't want to live in the whole big house. They just want a decent accommodation. But access to land is key. So government must say, okay, take this land, you build on it, sell it to our people at a cheaper rate. Then we can now move to federal government and say, okay, you have a mortgage scheme that can enable the director, the civil servants, those working in this level to assess and pay back in 30 years. And by so doing, if it's like rent to own, you're paying your rent of 1 million naira yearly, and you have that accommodation. But Rivers State is not assessing that. The reason why, because we're not putting out anything out there. I don't want to spend 900 million, 800 million, buy land somewhere, and you come and be telling me to use it and be doing pay today, come tomorrow and all that. So government must encourage this. So there are things for people like, I don't want to point you a big man. You understand?
I hear you. Thank you.
So there's something for everybody, but we must get the policies right. And government needs to look into it. Get experts. Don't get land speculators. You give somebody land on the airport, he's converting it into service plot and he's selling for 30-something, 40 million. He doesn't have the masses at heart. I'm a businessman. If you don't give me strict warning in terms of don't do this, don't do this, do that. Of course, everybody wants to utilize profits. So you give me that land, I'll oscillate it into plots of land. But if it is for mass housing, then we must face mass housing.
What's your, as a wrap up, what's your vision for the real estate sector in Rivers State?
I have 2 sectors I'm looking at. We need to start looking at mass housing. We have a good population in this state at about 7 million. Port Harcourt holds about 4 million or 5 million people. We have a seaport. We have an international airport. Lufthansa drops here every week, twice a week. Other airlines can join. Population-wise, we have most of the big multinational companies. In fact, all the oil and gas company has a footprint in Rivers State. Huge markets. Lagos is getting choked. People are looking for alternative. Government must start looking at low-cost housing. And you must encourage people to start developing that. How they go about it should not be your problem. But you must be able to provide land for them to be able to do that. And by so doing, you call the right people with the right ideas. It is not about, I need to know the governor, I don't need to know the governor. We sit down and brainstorm. Excellency, we can do this in this, we can do this in this. Provide me with this. I don't need to have the whole resources. Because you ask somebody, I go and bring technical report, bring this one, bring financial report and all that. They cook up all sorts of things, maybe build up 10 billion, 30 billion to show you they have the capacity. At the end of the day, you give them parcel of land, they go and fence it and start selling to the rich at 30-something million, 40 million. They are business people. But you must look at those that have passion to do the job. Provide them with access to land. Let them be able to demonstrate and show you that. I was doing an analysis last night when I had this conversation with you. What it takes to construct a bungalow. If I tell you to be shocked, but I won't say it. You don't need less than 4,000 blocks. Multiply 650 naira by 4,000 blocks. How much is that? It's less than 2.3 million. What does it take to chuck them? I don't know what I'm saying. So by the time you look at the windows and all that, you find out that it is not as easy. See, there's what we call luxury homes. The one you have, the whole Alexas, the strip lights and everything is wrong. Cool. There are people that need that. We have them in the market. But there's somebody that just wants somewhere to have a decent environment, just put his head, has a normal room, shower running and all that. That's a simple accommodation. We should be able to provide that first before we start looking for the man that is looking for Alexa, turn on my lights. So government must sit down and look at those with the right ideas and encourage them and say, let's do this for the people. And today people still talk about Jakonde in Lagos. After how many years?
I wish we could go on trips, but we have run out of time. We have to wrap this up now. I always knew it was going to be an interesting conversation.
Always good talking to you, Dio. Always good talking to you.
And that's a wrap for this edition of Canvas, the Niger Delta Roundtable. But the land could be yours, or the home could be yours, or whatever it is you're thinking as far as real estate investment is concerned, could be yours. And thanks to my guest, Nze Anasike.
Thank you very
Cribs.
much.
It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much. And I'm thanking the whole Niger Data. This is a worldwide reach program.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Niger Data. And thank you, Dio, for having me. Always interesting moment having a chat with you.
And thank you for being a part of this as well.
Okay.
Look in the real estate industry, and like Chris mentioned a while ago, always consult an expert in the industry as well before making those choices. I'm Dio. Thanks for your time once again, and wish you all the best. Bye for now.